I love the original Willow film, and I loved the Disney Plus show. It was a great romp through a childlike universe that took me back to being 6, 7 years old. I really enjoyed it with Chris. My brother's family enjoyed it as well. The kids loved it. This was something that for me was a highly entertaining romp from the original film into the series and beyond. And it remains to be seen if it's going to get a second season or not. But in the meantime, one of the things they have been very actively pursuing is publishing a variety of blog posts over on the Lucasfilm.com website, covering not only production of the original film, but also behind the scenes featurettes and discos and stuff regarding the new show, such as the case with this Ron Howard interview that was put out earlier in March here on the 3rd of March, 2023. So he was an executive producer on the Disney Plus show, and they actually brought him for an interview where he talks about directing the 1988 film, and then he talks about more about the enduring legacy of the comedic fantasy and its recent comeback. So I kind of wanted to go through this because there's some cool pictures. It's a nice interview. And for someone like me who really enjoyed the film and really enjoyed the Disney Plus show, it's just more Willow for me to sink my teeth into. I even liked the books that Chris Claremont wrote with Lucas back in like late 90s, early 2000s. Matter of fact, I probably should go reread those at some point because it's been forever and a day since I've even had, seen those. Food for thought. Anyway, it said here that Ron Howard had already won acclaim as a producer and director of Apollo 13 when he stepped into the Academy of Achievements in 97. The Conference for Academically Gifted High School Seniors spoke to interests ranging from science to government to athletics, and Howard was on the guest list to talk about the entertainment industry. George Lucas was there as well. He tells Lucasfilm, in fact, Kathleen Kennedy was there as well. And every time Howard was pulled into a conversational aside with the young students, they didn't want to discuss his work on Cocoon, Parenthood, or the real life drama of the space race. He said that generation really only wanted to talk to me about Willow. And why not? Willow is one of those films. It has cheesy dialogue, pretty decent action sequences for its time, but it has lovable characters and it's fantasy. And it was George Lucas, who at the time, George Lucas hadn't done the prequel trilogy yet, so he hadn't got all the hate that he was going to get later on. He was still very much in that post Star Wars glow of everyone loving everything George Lucas did. And he was spreading his creativity around a lot, not only working on Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but also doing things like Howard the Duck, which didn't make it out of the ballpark, unfortunately. It's not a bad film if you've ever seen it, but it's also not a good film. Oh man, there was it doesn't matter. Let's talk about Willow more. I'm gonna get sidetracked if I let myself. So, it said at the time of the interview, engagement that he was giving at the college, it said nearly a decade had passed since Howard had directed the Warwick Davis starring film about the eponymous sorcerer, which is one of Lucas's creations. And he says, I talked to George about it, and he said, this is why we're continuing with the books, which are the books I just mentioned earlier that were written by Chris Claremont, and we should do something more with Warwick Davis. We should do something with the world. Lucas's instincts was that it should be serialized. Felt like television was a place. Lucas has felt that way about a lot of things. I remember to this day, I'm disappointed that the scripts that Ronald D. Moore wrote for Lucas for the live action Star Wars show are never going to see the light of day. Because supposedly dozens of those scripts were written, and at the end of the day, it was just a thing where Lucas decided he wasn't going to be able to find, somebody who wanted to distribute it the way he wanted to get it done, so it was going to be too expensive to pull off. But Ronald D. Moore is a great writer. I love everything he did with Battlestar Galactica, this Carnival, Outlander, stuff he did with Next Generation and on Deep Space Nine, specifically on Deep Space Nine with all the Klingon stuff. It would have been really cool to see that stuff come to fruition, but Lucas has had his fingers in a lot of different creative pies over the years, and Willow is just one of those along the way. So it says here that flash forward to 2017 when Howard was brought on to direct Solo, a Star Wars story, 5 years after Lucasfilm was acquired by Walt Disney Company and during the later stages of preparations for the launch of Disney Plus. Fueled by his close working relationship with Kennedy, who is now at the helm of Lucasfilm, and John Kasdan, the future Willow series creator who was then co-writing the Solo film script, said the idea of a continuation of Willow's story gained traction. Said here, John was of the generation that just really dug the movie Willow and played it over and over and over again, wore out his VHS, and moved on to the DVD. Well, I mean, Kasdan's my generation, so yeah, that was Willow was one of those defining films of when we were children, like being, you know, 6 to 10 to somewhere in the 6 to 15-year-old ballpark. That movie was just ugh. It says, surely, slowly but surely, in and around the lighting setups of Solo, I began to see that John had a real point of view about how to update Willow and how to advance it, not just in terms of dealing with the next generation of characters and what to do with Laura Dan and where she'd been and all that, but also how to expand on the evil, expand on the threat, and what the dark magic could mean. Howard says he was impressed by Kasdan's passion and knowledge, and more importantly, the writer understood that the core of the Willow universe, like other Lucasfilm projects, required levity and humor mixed in with relatable characters and high stakes adventure. Said John is always funny, humor is always central to the charm of the movie. It was always a character comedy, or I guess the Willow character, sorry. It was always a character comedy in our minds and George's as well, and I thought with the series you could have more relationships than John could find ways to make the fantasy feel present and real so it's not tongue in cheek, but let those characters feel relatable and humorous and entertaining in a contemporary way. And one of the things I talked about when I was reviewing the episodes of Willow on Disney Plus was that every single episode made me laugh. Like I genuinely had enjoyment every single episode. Some of it was a little over the top and kind of cheesy, but I'm okay with that because it was a kids show. It wasn't meant to be some, Shakespearean epic for Broadway, It was meant to be this children's show that adults who still have their inner child alive and thriving could enjoy. Unfortunately, some people's inner child is dead and smothered, and they didn't get enjoyment out of this, and that sucks for them. Says the first season of the series, now streaming on Disney Plus, is earnest, joyous, and fun. A mix of high fantasy story elements and heart is reflective of today's society. His original was a mirror of the world of 1988. That's some PR writing that well right there, because that's not that's not part of the interview. Um, Howard says going back to the original, it's always about trying to find who you are and the hero's journey. Is Willow a sorcerer? Is Mad Mardigan a rogue, or is he a hero? Who is Sorsha? How does she fit in? Where does she fit in? In our minds, those are always the question marks around the movie. Using adventure, magic, and fantasy to test yourself, to be tested, to ask questions of yourself in a kind of organic way, reveal who you are, how you feel, and what you stand for. And he said, although he didn't consult Lucas on this particular project, he said the film's creator was happy to see the story continue. He said he was glad we were doing it, largely out of affection for and belief in Warwick. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not this gets a continuation or not. It says here that Howard was in Dublin when a bartender was passing him a pint of Guinness and paused and said, "Before you drink this, I just want you to know that I'm loving Willow." And that to me is a testament. You have an elderly bartender telling Ron Howard, "Hey man, I'm really liking the show that you guys put together." Like I I thought it was good. It was fun. By the way, that screenshot's really good right there. As far as the potential second season, it says here nothing's been confirmed, but Howard says Kasdan has planned for more chapters. He says I know where it could go, and it's great. I won't say any more than that, but John didn't want to embark without knowing the destination. He thinks of it as a finite epic tale, and this is an early portion of that. It's been great to work on. I'd love to see us do more. We're all standing by, so we'll see. So at this point, they're still waiting to see back, hear back if Lucasfilm is going to greenlight it or not for season two. I mean, honestly, I don't know what the numbers were like, but I know that the general consensus from people that I've talked to, like actual people, not the internet trolls of the world, the actual people I've talked to in our Discord channel and family members and friends, I haven't met a single person who was disappointed with the show. I've met some people who were, critical of a couple of elements of the show that were related to some of the cheesiness in the dialogue, and I think that that's a fair criticism to make. It wasn't like it was a glowing 100%, perfect show for me either, but I was entertained the whole way through, and I thought it had a very good arc. Ending with sort of like the, you know, Stranger Things type ending, so to speak, of what's on the other side and the potential for the big bad that could come back for season two. And also, where Mad Mardigan is, um, being a sort of a part of that. So there's interesting ways. I could definitely see them pulling off, 3 seasons. I think that would be a good enough run. I don't know if they have plans for more than that, but I think a 3 season run is something I could see being for, feasible for something like this. What did we just watch? Picard. Like Picard was a 3 season run. You're getting 25, 30 episodes across a 3 year span of time, and it's not necessarily cheap to produce, but it's also not going to break the bank, and you're going to do fan service and you're going to get subscriptions for your service, and that's a win for everybody involved. So Anyway, for me, I thought this was a fun dipping of my toes back into the Willow world. There's actually another blog post that they put up yesterday, the day before, that I'm going to go ahead and do a discussion on as well. So stay tuned for that. And if you like this kind of stuff, as always, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Support if you can, please. Memberships here, super chat, super thanks, all those good things. $2, $5, $50, whatever you can afford to throw at me. Also, the Patreon page. Don't forget the Discord channel. It keeps the lights on, keeps the bills paid, keeps my cats fed. Actually, there's not a cat on the bed right now. There is a, I swear there's a cat on the bed. Sam's right over there. Anyway, folks, see you next time. Stay safe.